Welcome to the mother relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Clarissa Shields DM'd me yesterday. It was like basically, Cam, they trying to rewrite history. I have the most watched fight ever in women's boxing history. Their first fight was 1.5 million. My fight was 2 million. So I DM'd her back. I said, "That's what's up, sis." But I sent her the new numbers with 50 million people was watching the fight, and I said, "You got some
60 million.
Do you realize how telling this is? The fight between Amanda and Katie was what, 4-5 days ago, less than a week?
It was.
Do you realize how bothered you have to be to reach out to Camron Giles claiming that they're trying to rewrite history? They don't have to rewrite anything. They're making history. Amanda Serrano already did. She's the only woman 7-division champion in the history of women's boxing.
Tack on undisputed.
And Katie Taylor? You should know better than going after Katie Taylor. I mean, you really should. The 2 gold medals you're always bragging about, you never would have even got the chance to win them, to fight for them, if it wasn't for her. She's the reason that women like you were allowed into the Olympics.
No Katie Taylor, no Clarissa Shields.
And you notice that neither Katie or Amanda are glory hogs in all the ways that Clarissa Shields is a glory hog. I knew she wasn't happy for them when those preliminary numbers came out, from 50 million to 60 to the latest. 74 million live viewers for Taylor versus Serrano 2. I knew Clarissa was beside herself.
She was gonna crash out.
Do you know how beside yourself you have to be to reach out to Camron Giles so that he can do what? When you reach out to this guy and you tell him that they're trying to rewrite history, what do you expect him to do? Go on his podcast? Tear them down?
Never mind that you're lying.
These are official numbers. This is not some boxing scribe, some journalist communicating these numbers via their inside sources. This is from the horse's mouth. Netflix themselves.
Oh, you think they're gonna lie to make you look bad? The ego on this broad.
I'll tell you the truth that Clarissa Shields reaching out to Camron Giles the way that she did, it must not have sat well with him for him to take to the Is What It Is podcast and air out her dirty laundry that while all the numbers were still coming in, rave reviews,
He just exposed her.
you're scrambling to rally the troops. Against who? Against Katie? Against Amanda? Against Netflix? Because what are you telling him for?
What's that gonna do?
There's several videos I've done on the subject of Clarissa Shields and the green-eyed monster that has a hold of her. I've said it on many occasions, many times. She's not happy for any of these girls when they're doing good, when they're doing well, and elevating the sport in ways that she can't because she's insufferable, because nobody likes her, nobody really.
Save a vocal minority online that always fails to show up where it counts. In the numbers, at the box office, or at the gate.
Remember that she was on pay-per-view at least once, approximately 3 years ago. And for all the guys and gals that like to argue on her behalf, how many of them can produce a receipt? How many of them do you think bought the Marie-Eve Dicaire fight?
Yeah, I can always find some idiot arguing on her behalf that can't tell me anything about Clarissa that I don't already know.
The hate runs deep, ladies and gentlemen. If you take a step back and look at this for what it is, that fight was only 4 or 5 days ago, and that means that in the 4 or 5 days that followed, Clarissa has been working clandestinely to tear down Katie, to tear down Amanda, who she claims to love.
I ain't surprised. I told you she's not happy for anybody. Unless she's the center of attention, monopolizing all of it. Unless she's the center of the universe.
She can't deal. And that's why, in spite of her 2 Olympic gold medals and whatever belts she picked up along the way in the paid ranks, she's never been a good ambassador for the sport.
She never will be.
She's too unlikable. This is just more reason to dislike her. It may take a minute to process all of this, to let it sink in.
The envy.
What's even worse is that she could have had a rematch with Savannah Marshall like Katie and Amanda just had a rematch, but Clarissa was insistent. It has to be in America. It has to happen here.
You don't sell shit here.
You understand that Boxer, Ben Shalom, and Savannah Marshall, they wanted to do a second fight. They wanted to do a rematch, and because Clarissa won the first one, she could have asked for more money for the second, but she chose to forego all of that.
She knew what she was doing.
You don't got nowhere near the drawing power in this country to bring Savannah and that fight to America. You know that. So when you make that demand, it's with the understanding that the rematch won't happen.
Maybe that's what she wanted.
Because who's supposed to pay for it? Dimitri Salita? Does he have $1 million, $2 million to put up? Think about that. And think about how Katie Taylor could have done the same thing. She could have said, I'm not fighting Amanda in America because I already fought her there the first time. This time I want it in the UK.
She could have done that, but she didn't. She's fought Amanda Serrano on American soil twice and didn't complain.
She didn't pull that stunt that Clarissa Shields pulled, and for that, the entire sport of women's boxing was better for it.
Secret haters.
Women's boxing's not so best kept secret that Clarissa Shields is envious of Katie Taylor. She's envious of Amanda Serrano, their fandom, their earning power, their accolades.
Secret haters.
Because what is that if it's not envy?
Jealousy.
She could never appeal to an audience that size. To make matters worse, you know, Katie and Amanda, in terms of super fights, it's not limited to them just fighting each other over and over again. Katie can run it back with Chantel Camron. That's a big fight. Amanda can return to the featherweight division. See about fighting Sky Nicholson. That's a big fight.
People act like it's a question to spare Clarissa Shields' feelings when they ask who's the face of women's boxing. It's really down to two women, and not one of them is Clarissa Shields.
It's Katie and Amanda, the highest paid
That pay the most.
and are simultaneously the most watched, by and large more so than Clarissa Shields.
You guys are just being nice. Nobody thinks Clarissa's the face of the sport.
And I don't actually think she's better than Katie or Amanda in terms of her boxing. I think she's just fighting in weaker divisions with less girls in them.
Katie and Amanda jointly are the GOATs.
And they don't need to beat that drum themselves on their social media the way Clarissa does, because their supporters, their legions of fans, do that for them.
That's how it's supposed to be.
In men's lightweight news, on the heels of what was Riyadh season Latino night, where we saw William Zepeda take on former champion Tevin Farmer and beat him from pillar to post,
Though not before he got decked. Not before he got sent to the canvas off a hard left-hand counter.
Tevin Farmer has taken to his social media 2 separate times since then, talking about Farmer versus Zepeda 2. And the first time, I ignored it. I didn't think much of it. But I saw it again and I thought to myself, why would Tevin be under the impression that William Zepeda would even give him a rematch? Why would he want one?
Got his ass kicked.
And after the fight, he complained about how there was no anti-doping testing. That initially, per the contracts, there was supposed to be, but there was none before the fight, and there was none after the fight. So under that premise, why would you want to run it back with William Zepeda? Unless
Asuka uses a rematch with Tevin to get him out of a fight with Shakur.
it's the only answer that makes any sense. Why would Tevin Farmer think he's gonna fight William Zepeda again? Why would he be under that impression?
Do you think that maybe Golden Boy are offering him a second fight so that he quiets down about the anti-doping testing?
That there was none? Is it because they're in breach of the contract? Tevin said the contract stipulated there would be anti-doping testing, so that when there is none, is that not a breach? Does it not constitute one?
I'm just asking questions.
I don't know why he's saying this. I'm just bouncing ideas around. Thinking aloud, because thinking's allowed. That fight was lopsided. For the most part, it was. William Zepeda won a decisive victory, so why would Tevin want to run it back with him?
I don't know, but I'll tell you this. If William Zepeda fights anyone else, anyone other than Shakur Stevenson in his next fight, whether it's Tevin or this guy or that guy, that's a duck.
Enough of the bullshit and the excuse making because you like William, because you think he's more entertaining than Shakur, or you think he would beat Shakur. Maybe he would, but he's got to fight him to prove it. And if he doesn't fight him, if he fights Tevin again or somebody else, that is a duck. It's not a secret that Oscar De La Hoya, since his stable has thinned out over the years, has become protective, very protective of his fighters. He can't afford for them to take a loss. He'll never admit that Matchroom stable is a lot bigger than his. And one of his unbeaten guys taking a loss really don't mean much. He's got more where that came from. But if one of Oscar's boys takes a loss,
It hurts.
I've talked about Zepeda versus Stevenson as a fight, the stylistic breakdown, and how William actually has the right base style for the job, to put a pure boxer under pressure and cause them to unravel as the fight progresses. But if that's the case, then why would Oscar want to forego it? Why would Oscar want to skip it?
The drug testing. William Zepeda didn't get tested for his fight with Tevin Farmer, but against Shakur Stevenson he would. Oh yeah, they'll make sure. William was the A-side fighter to Tevin, but he wouldn't be the A-side fighter to Shakur. Shakur would be the defending champion, and because there's a full alphabet title on the line, and because Shakur has good representation, and because he now has Matchroom behind him, you can bet your bottom dollar there's gonna be anti-doping testing. So maybe the reason that Oscar's not crazy about that fight isn't because he's afraid that William will lose, but he's afraid that William will get found out.
That the proverbial cat will be out of the proverbial bag. I'm just saying, if for any reason at all, William doesn't fight Shakur Stevenson next year, remember that Turkey's the one who wants to put it on. Turkey's the one paying for it, so you can't pretend it's not worth any money.
You're not gonna make fighting Tevin Farmer again what you could make fighting Shakur. You're not gonna make with Dennis Berenchik what you could make fighting Shakur.
You're not.
You've got the right style for the job. There's no reason not to.
Unless you've got something to hide, unless Oscar De La Hoya is unwilling because he has a secret to protect. I'm just saying, the ball is in their court and the pressure is on. As much talking as Oscar has been doing in his little Clapback Thursday videos.
Put your money where your mouth is.
You got no cojones? You've got all this stuff to say about Queensbury versus Matchroom. Let's see Golden Boy versus Matchroom. Let's see how that breaks down, how that looks.
Let's see it.
You've got a financier, so you don't have to worry about the money.
That solves a lot of problems right then and there.
I don't know, but these are going to be very bad optics for William Zepeda and Golden Boy Promotions if William's next fight isn't Shakur. And finally, Ryan Garcia to return in December in exhibition versus kickboxer Rikuya Anpo.
It's the guy who did the exhibition with Manny. Made him look really old.
Ryan Garcia will return to the ring on December 30th in an exhibition bout against Japanese kickboxer Rikuya Anpo in Tokyo. Despite currently serving a suspension due to a failed test for performance-enhancing drugs, Garcia, 26, in June was issued a one-year retroactive suspension by the New York State Athletic Commission after testing positive for the pad Osterin, ahead of his April fight with junior welterweight title holder Devin Haney. The Garcia vs. Anpo exhibition will be contested under the full boxing rules at 153-pound catchweight over 8 2-minute rounds. It will mark Garcia's first action since the Haney bout, which was changed to a no contest after initially being ruled a majority decision win. Garcia, 24-1 with 20 KOs, of Victorville, California, dropped Haney 3 times in the upset decision, but even before the commission's ruling, he was ineligible to win Haney's title after showing up to the weigh-in more than 3 pounds over. I'm looking forward to knocking Anpo out for disrespecting Manny Pacquiao, Garcia said. Referencing Anpo's July exhibition against Pacquiao, I'll teach him a lesson in respect. Anpo, 28, is a former kickboxing world champion from Himeji, Japan, known as the Demolition Man. He has earned accolades such as Fight of the Year and KO of the Year, and debuted in Rizin in 2023.
Is it Rizin or Risen?
Whatever they are, they must got money, because that's the same promotional company that did Floyd's exhibition match, 1 or 2 of his exhibition matches.
And Manny's.
And now Ryan's. I surpass Ryan in size, speed, and power, Anpo said. If he treats this like a party, I'll give him a beatdown and show America who the real bad boy is. 153 pounds, that's junior middle. Lends credence to the notion that Ryan will not be returning to the 140-pound division, and in not doing so, you can forget about a Gervonta Davis rematch, unless Ryan plans to get there half dead.
Ryan already proved he can't make 140 healthy, let alone anything near 135, so to do a rematch, it would have to be Gervonta Davis that moves up. He'd have to make that concession, and I don't think he will.
I know they talked about doing a rematch on their social media. They talk about it, but talk is cheap.
Gervonta needs that rematch more than Ryan.
Which is funny because Gervonta Davis won the first fight, but if you aspire to do big numbers again, well, you didn't do them with Frank Martin, and you're not about to with Lamont Roach. Your best bet would have been a Ryan Garcia rematch, but now you're so far removed by weight, I don't think it's gonna happen.
That was your best bet.
Your best option, whereas you are just one among several for Ryan Garcia. Ryan can also do a rematch with Devin Haney somewhere at welterweight, or he can follow through on what he said. Fight Jake Paul. That would be bigger than your fight.
He did $1 million with you. He might do well over $1 million with Jake between his social media following and Jake's social media following. It'll be bigger than your fight.
Acting as the avenger of sorts, the avenging angel for retirees, retired boxers that are exploited by outsiders. In this instance, Anpo, ultimately, Jake Paul.
The end game.
Now, in reality, Manny Pacquiao was no more exploited by Rikuya Anpo than Mike Tyson was exploited by Jake Paul. The reality of the situation is they got to make a truckload of money for what wasn't a real fight. That's what really happened, though outside looking in, this will be the sales pitch, that Ryan is acting as the avenging angel for these retirees that have been exploited.
If getting exploited makes you $20 million, sign me up.
Perhaps in an effort to redeem his public image after what was a hellish 2024.
A self-inflicted wound after that tirade and the suspension and the peds and all of that.
The exhibition is set to go down before this year is out at year's end. I don't know if DAZN is going to broadcast it, if there is any association with Golden Boy Promotions here in America and DAZN as a potential broadcaster for said exhibition.
I don't know if they're gonna show it.
And I still don't know how the New York State Athletic Commission feels about it. Granted that Tokyo is well outside of their jurisdiction, is this not an affront to the suspension they levied against Ryan? That he's still making money. He's still making money from the sport of boxing.
The function of the suspension is to act as a penalty against the boxer for violating the rules.
You broke them, so now you don't get to make any money from the sport of boxing for a designated amount of time. Ryan has found a way around that.
But how does the New York State Athletic Commission feel about it? Does it have any bearing on his suspension?
And what about the rules of engagement? To sell this event, Ryan is talking about knocking out Rikuya Anpo. Is he allowed to do that?
He's a big boy.
For the beating that he put on Devin Haney, the shellacking that Devin suffered, Ryan didn't knock him out. He knocked him down 3 times, but he didn't stop him. Now this fight is well above that at 153. Can he knock out Rikuya Anpo? We'll see how he makes out. There are certain implications attached to Ryan Garcia potentially moving up far enough that he fights Jake Paul. I'm not sure he's actually going to do it. Of course, commercially it's a big fight. Huge, if they can do it.
Though he would be venturing far, far outside of his comfort zone, far outside his natural weight.
Well above it. And if he were to move up that far for Jake, what would that mean for the rest of his career? Where would he campaign?
Because I don't think he'd drop back down. Certainly not back down to 140 or 147.
So we'll see. But you can look for the ring return of Ryan Garcia later on this year in December. Even though he's under suspension, it's like he never left. What does it say? That the guy who's supposed to be under suspension will have seen action more times this calendar year than both Devin Haney and Gervonta Davis.
I thought these were supposed to be the business guys.
Ryan seems to be the only one with any real prospects to do big business.